Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into the -1 line, the moment random business stops working. Look, there is a very clear line forming right now in the business landscape. On one side, chaos can still survive. But on the other, well, only truly accountable operators can make it. We're going to break down exactly how this massive shift is happening, and frankly, help you figure out which side of the line you're standing on right now.
Think of it like a clean line in the sand, literally separating two completely different eras of business. The old world, that was a place where hidden chaos could just kind of survive behind closed doors. You could have totally disorganized teams and broken processes, and the customer rarely felt the true cost of it. But in this new emerging world, that safety net is just gone. It's an environment where hidden chaos inevitably turns into a visible, crippling cost. Only the accountable operators are going to win here.
The contrast here is honestly pretty stark. If we look at the before era, you could basically just wing it, right? You could hide behind company policy, make these really vague promises, and patch up problems on a case-by-case basis. Being disorganized was almost allowed. But in the aftermarket, the rules of survival change entirely. You absolutely must run reliable, documented systems, and crucially, you have to actually own your outcomes when things inevitably go wrong.
Now, to get why this line matters so much today, we have to understand why that old world worked for as long as it did. In the past, you didn't really need to be highly organized or even all that excellent to make money. Often, you literally just needed to be available. If you were the only vendor in town or the only software that worked with a client's old system, your operational flaws, they didn't really matter. You basically won by default.
I mean, those before-era environments were incredibly forgiving. Think about it. Information moves slowly. Alternatives were notoriously scarce. Switching to a competitor felt like a massive, risky headache for the buyer. And if a customer had a terrible experience, they usually just suffered in private, maybe complaining to a couple of friends at most. Now, this lack of market friction didn't mean having weak, disorganized systems was a good thing. It just meant the cost of that hidden chaos was way easier to sweep under the rug.
But that's all changing, and the market is pivoting right beneath our feet. Today, it's a battle of vague promises versus measurable proof. The modern buyer is comparing alternatives faster than a seller can even explain them. Before they even hop on a sales call with you, they've read the reviews, polled their peers on social media, and evaluated 3 other competing offers instantly. And when they have to choose between a vague promise and concrete, measurable proof, the whole dynamic of who holds the risk shifts completely.
Which brings us to a really critical realization about financial consequence. Before -1, excuses could stay invisible. After -1, excuses become cash out. I'll say that again because it's the core of all this. When a seller attaches a real financial consequence to missing value, vague language and operational delays suddenly become incredibly dangerous. You can't just leave the full cost of a failure quietly sitting in the buyer's lap anymore. You actually have to pay for it yourself.
So let's picture the buyer's risk scale here. When a buyer weighs their options during a comparison, the math is pretty simple. A seller giving vague, wishy-washy answers might not be intentionally dishonest, but they look significantly riskier than a competitor who is offering visible, measurable accountability. The market aggressively shifts its preference, and of course its dollars, toward whoever makes that crucial first step feel the safest.
The hard truth we have to face is that the buyer is learning way faster than the seller. They are showing up to the table asking very direct, uncompromising questions. What exactly are you promising? How are we going to know if you actually delivered it? And most importantly, who carries the downside if things go south? They're actively hunting for who is really holding the risk in the deal.
Back in the before era, operational chaos had plenty of places to hide. The fine print, case-by-case resolutions, unclear timelines, the classic results may vary, or, honestly my personal favorite, just blaming the economy. But today, these phrases become major red flags. They look highly suspicious when they're used to avoid responsibility for a promise that was supposedly clear enough to sell in the first place. So we're seeing this massive, distinct split. Policy shield versus visible consequence. On one side, you have businesses relying on a rigid wall of policy to protect themselves from their own failures. On the other side, you have modern businesses binding themselves to the actual measurable performance of their delivery. If you put yourself in the consumer's shoes, who are you going to buy from? The company hiding behind legal text or the one offering a visible consequence if they mess up? That brings us to the core thesis of this whole explainer. Negative price is not a trend. It is a line in the sand. Now, let's be super clear here. This is not some legal prediction. And no, not every single business has to use a negative price model. This is purely a market selection argument.
When buyers suddenly have the power to compare your vague promises against a competitor's visible seller-side accountability, random operations just become drastically harder to sustain. What this actually demands is that responsibility becomes a strict operating standard. And let me clarify, responsibility is not a moral word in this context. It's not a motivational poster in the break room, and it's definitely not about just yelling, "We care," louder than the competition. It is a structural requirement. It means you physically build the capability to back up what you say, day in and day out.
So what does that look like? Well, it looks like a stable delivery loop and a real system dashboard. A company doesn't magically become accountable just because they post a really nice apology on social media when their servers go down. True accountability means relying on repeatable systems. It means eligibility for a guarantee is totally transparent to the customer. And crucially, it means the internal system actually makes a permanent change when a failure happens.
The requirements for this level of operational accountability are strict. First, the promise has to be crystal clear upfront. Second, delivery must be consistent every single time. When things do go wrong, corrections have to be fast. You can't just sweep valid failures under the rug. They have to become data that drives permanent system improvements. And maybe the most important part, the financial consequence for failure has to be fully funded ahead of time. This is literally the difference between heroic rescue and repeatable delivery. Before-era businesses survive on permanent firefighting. You know the drill, that frantic Friday afternoon email chain where someone has to work all weekend just to save a client relationship because the underlying system is totally broken. Aftermarket businesses, they don't do that. They rely on sustainable, repeatable systems that don't depend on luck or burning out their staff just to succeed. This dynamic is pure selection pressure. Now, businesses that refuse to adapt, they aren't going to just spontaneously collapse overnight. That's not how this works. Instead, they'll just slowly fade away. Premium buyers are simply going to start choosing clearer, safer alternatives. You'll see sales cycles get longer, margins steadily shrink, internal stress skyrocket. Basically, the business will slowly become defensive, exhausted, and eventually irrelevant. All of this leads to a really profound strategic argument that every single leader needs to hear right now. The question is not whether your business works on a good day. The question is whether it can survive being judged on a bad one. Are you structurally prepared right now to literally pay for your own operational mistakes? So let's take a look in the mirror for a second. Are we still winging it? You really have to critically evaluate your own operations here. Do you still rely on luck and some heroic last-minute effort from your team instead of a reliable, documented structure? Are your sales folks out there making bold promises during the pitch that your operations team honestly can't keep on a consistent basis? Here's another one to chew on. Do we still hide behind policy? Are you using the fine print to quietly sidestep making things right when a clear promise falls through? Are you secretly hoping that a disappointed buyer will just stay quiet, leaving the financial burden entirely on their shoulders instead of yours? To give you a real-world idea of what crossing this line actually looks like in practice, let's talk about NegBook. NegBook is the first book in the world with a negative price. It serves as literal public proof that sellers can no longer hide behind vague reassurances when their value is actually tested under clear, measurable conditions. The battle cry of the book perfectly captures what visible seller-side consequence looks like in reality. It's simple. Either it helps you or it pays you. You can find out exactly how this operates over at www.negbook.com. It's a fantastic example of taking that downside risk and placing it strictly back on the creator, exactly where it rightfully belongs. If you're an operational executive, you need to ask yourself if your promise, your delivery, your team capacity, and your risk cap are actually strong enough to survive this emerging market reality. If you're ready to find out, apply for the -1 Diagnostic. The link is right down in the description, negbook.com/negative-price standard. Ultimately, the future belongs to operators who can actually stand to be judged. A business built on vague promises is going to struggle intensely in a market that demands accountable proof. So I'll leave you with this final, uncompromising strategic warning. Do not build a before-era business inside an aftermarket. The market has already drawn its line in the sand. So, which side are you going to stand on?